Alrighty. Okay. Let's hide all of this stuff. Cool. All right. So now we're back. We're going to talk about logical fallacies. Lots of clips and videos in this to help you kind of get some of them. And there's a lot of terms. So if I were you, I would be writing them down. Again, you're not going to remember all of these. And it's not like I'm going to give you some vocabulary quiz on what logical fallacies are. But as you write your essays, you have to kind of be playing chess with yourself. You have to be thinking like the evidence that I'm using, especially the logos piece, like the logicality of my argument largely hinges on if I'm falling into any fallacies. And as I'm grading your paper, like when I'm giving you feedback, I will comment on there and say, this is a fallacy, or you just walked into a logical fallacy using this evidence. So this is my first sort of not warning, but sort of like heed to you. Take time with your essay. Don't try to write it in one night. I, all professors say that, and you're gonna wait until the last minute to write it. I get it. There's a lot of studies that say people actually produce their best work whenever they're put under a lot of pressure. But the reason that I say don't wait until the last minute is because you need time to write it and go on about your business. Go on about, have 3 or 4 days to yourself, then come back and read the paper and go, whoa, this is crap. I say all first drafts are crap. All of my first drafts are crap. So I'm not saying that to make you feel like you're a poor writer or anything. But your first sort of dump, give it some time to breathe. Let it sizzle a little bit. Let the aroma come off of it, and then come back to it and see what you can do with it. All right. So let's talk about some fallacies of relevance, because evidence is largely rooted in logos, because you're looking for the logicality of like you're looking for the stats, you're looking for the news clippings, the what have you. Ethos, of course, is yourself, and then pathos is emotion. So when we think about fallacies, we need to be thinking about how they're adhering to the logic. So the first one is going to be red herring, which you might have heard of that in high school. Red herring is when a speaker skips to a new and irrelevant topic in order to avoid the topic of discussion. This largely happens in speaking, but some people fall into this in their writing because they sort of give some random example that really doesn't narrow in on like the evidence piece that they're trying to nail, but it's very rare. Then you also have ad hominems. Now, this ad hominem is Latin for to the man. So that's when you're switching from the attention from the argument at hand to the character or the speaker on the other side. So let's take, for example, we were talking about who's going to be the best presidential candidate. We know Joe Biden and Donald Trump are some big names that are being spoken about right now. So let's say we were doing an argumentative piece on why Donald Trump should be the president, right? Now, we can spend all of this time talking about how Joe Biden was not a good president on paper, right? That's our logos. But then what if we start attacking how he is as a father? I mean, that might be true. That might be like accurate, but is it relevant? And because it's not relevant, we need to look for where does that fall on the fallacy side, and that falls right under ad hominem, because now I'm attacking the man himself. I'm not attacking the job. Because if we're comparing like the best presidents, it it does me little to no good to be talking about like who they are as a father. Now, some of you right now are making the argument in your mind, well, it does matter what kind of person we have leading the country, and that is true. I don't deny that at all. Just again, we need to think about claims. What claims are we making? Now, if we're making the claim that our president needs to also be a good citizen and a good father, then we can bring in that kind of evidence. But if we're talking about solely just getting the job of presidency done, excuse me, which some people actually really stick to that, especially around these two people, then that would be an ad hominem. Now let's talk about a faulty analogy. A faulty analogy is exactly what it sounds like. That's comparing things that don't actually relate to each other. So in the notes here, I wrote, think advertisements and celebrities. I I don't even know if I want to explain this right now. I actually want to explain this through this clip. Let me see if it's. let's check out these next couple clips because what I found is when I explain faulty analogies, students only really get it whenever they see it happening. So let's check this first one out, and then I think there's a faulty analogy clip down the line. Okay, so this first clip is going to be our red herring fallacy.
Obama, during the Democratic National Convention in 2008, you stated you wanted to keep AK-47s out of the hands of criminals. What has your administration done or plan to do to limit the availability of assault weapons?
Okay, so before we play the piece, remember a red herring. Let's go back.
Obama.
Let's make sure we understand. A red herring is when a speaker skips to a new and irrelevant topic in order to avoid the topic of discussion. So the lady just asked Obama, what do you plan to do about the gun situation?
Obama, during the Democratic National Convention in 2008, you stated you wanted to keep AK-47s out of the hands of criminals. What has your administration done or plan to do to limit the availability of assault weapons?
And so what can we do to intervene to make sure that young people have opportunity, that our schools are working, that if there's violence on the streets, that working with faith groups and law enforcement, we can catch it before it gets out of control.
What I believe is we have to do, as the president mentioned towards the end of his remarks there, which is to make enormous efforts to enforce the gun laws that we have and to change the culture of violence we have. And you ask, how are we going to do that? And there are a number of things. He mentioned good schools. I totally agree. We were able to drive our schools to be #1 in the nation in my state. And I believe if we do a better job in education, we'll give people the hope and opportunity they deserve and perhaps less violence from that. But let me mention another thing, and that is parents. We need moms and dads helping raise kids. Wherever possible, the benefit of having two parents in the home, and that's not always possible. A lot of great single moms, single dads. But gosh, to tell our kids that before they have babies, they ought to think about getting married to someone, that's a great idea. Because if there's a two-parent family, the prospect of living in poverty goes down dramatically. The opportunities that the child will be able to achieve increase dramatically. So we can make changes in the way our culture works to help bring people away from violence and give them opportunity and bring them in the American system.
So regardless, if you like Mitt Romney or Barack or not, I mean, just ain't, and I'm using ain't intentionally. Ain't nobody answer that question. Okay. The question was about guns in schools. We done went all over the world, right? Because we don't really have a real answer for that. We done went all over the world about the parents and the education system. And, my state was the highest in education last year. And that's a red herring. We're not answering nothing about the question. We just skipping on the topic. But if you notice, Mitt Romney does in my state, what I was able to do, what is that? You should be saying that is ethos. That's me building credibility. I'm not really giving you a real answer, but I am trying to give you a little bit of that credibility. Like, hey, but check me out though. You see what I did in my state? Yeah, I can do this. Okay. Then we start talking about the parents, bringing a little bit of pathos, making the audience feel like, yeah, you're right. We need 2-parent homes. Yeah, that's going to do it. All right. So he's really killing the game right there. All right. Let's move to the next one. Okay, let's talk about ad hominems. The Simpsons do a fantastic job of discussing logical fallacies, so hopefully you're a Simpson fan.
Ad hominem occurs when someone attacks. Ad hominem.
Sorry, I was trying to get this full screen so you can see all my tabs up there. Sorry, I apologize.
Ad hominem occurs when someone attacks the character or motives of a person instead of focusing on the issues.
I'm sorry my opponent didn't think enough of you to show up for this debate. I'm sure he had more important things to do.
Sorry I'm late, everyone. Somebody tampered with my brakes.
Well, then you should have been early.
Hey, got you there, eh?
Oh, come on, people. This man has promised round-the-clock trash pickup. That's impossible.
Not if we hire more men. And my men will do all your messy jobs. They'll wash your car, scrub your shower, air out your stinkables.
I can't believe what I'm hearing.
Well, then you better turn up your hearing aid, Pops.
Pops? I'm only 2 years older than you.
Do we want old man Patterson here with his finger on the button?
What button? What the hell are you talking about?
What button? Where am I? Who took my false teeth?
All right, fine. If you want an experienced public servant, vote for me. But if you want to believe a bunch of crazy promises about garbage men cleaning your gutters and waxing your car, then by all means, vote for this sleazy lunatic.
In this clip, Homer attacks the credibility of Ray Patterson simply because he appears old. In other words, he asserts that Patterson is not competent because he has gray hair. Patterson's ideas are, of course, independent of his looks. By not seeing Patterson for his ideas and instead seeing him in terms of his looks, Homer commits the ad hominem fallacy.
Subscribe to Colbert Classroom and be on the lookout for new videos.
Okay, I think that one was pretty self-explanatory.
Ad hominem.
So let's slide to the next one. Okay, now let's look at a weak analogy or a false comparison.
Me and the boys wish to thank you for hanging on to this stuff for us.
Thanks. Say, are you guys crooks?
But, is it wrong to steal a loaf of bread to feed your starving family?
No.
Well, suppose you got a large starving family. Is it wrong to steal a truckload of bread to feed them? And what if your family don't like bread? They like cigarettes.
I guess that's okay.
Now, what if instead of giving them away, you sold them at a price that was practically giving them away? Would that be a crime, Bart?
Hell no.
Enjoy your gift.
Superb.
In this clip, Fat Tony convinces Bart that it's okay to steal and sell cigarettes by comparing it to stealing bread to feed one's starving family. There is a gap in his logic because while in one example someone is stealing to save lives, an end that might justify its means, the other example involves stealing to increase one's personal wealth, a less laudable end. Fat Tony also glosses over the fact that he is not giving away what he steals, but selling it. By making a comparison that is not justified, Fat Tony uses a weak analogy.
Subscribe to Colbert Classroom and be on the lookout for new videos.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about fallacies of accuracy. So we've been talking about relevancy. I feel good about that. Let's talk about accuracy. There's two main ones. The first one is straw man fallacy, which maybe you've heard of. Typically, they teach that in high schools. So a straw man fallacy is when a speaker purposely chooses poor or oversimplified examples in order to ridicule and refute an opponent's viewpoint. It's literally, think about like a straw man, like I'm setting up a fake man, right? And then that fake man is weak. So I'm setting up some oversimplified example just to try to refute whatever you said. So check this out.
Straw man fallacy. To present a weak argument that can easily be refuted so that your argument looks better by contrast.
I can't believe they invented it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Troy McClure, star of such films as P is for Psycho and The President's Neck is Missing. But now I'm here to tell you about a remarkable new invention. Until now, this was the only way to get juice from an orange.
You mean there's a better way?
But that's all changed, thanks to the juice loosener. Let's meet the inventor, Dr. Nick Riviera.
Hello, Troy. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Troy, would you like a glass of orange juice?
I sure would. But won't we have to pay those outrageous grocery store prices for something the farmer probably spit in?
Not anymore. All thanks to the new juice loosener.
Doctor, are you sure it's on? I can't hear a thing.
It's Whisper Quiet.
You got all that from one bag of oranges?
In this clip, Troy McClure tries to persuade infomercial viewers that the juice loosener is a useful invention by first asserting that the only other way to get juice out of an orange was squeezing it against your face. He deliberately sets up a weaker argument, that of getting juice out of an orange by squeezing it against your face, so that the juice loosener looks better by contrast. By setting up a weak argument to be refuted and making his own argument look better by contrast, Troy McClure creates a straw man.
Subscribe to Colbert Classroom and be on the lookout for new videos.
Okay. And then the next fallacy of accuracy is going to be what's called a false dilemma. It's also called an either-or fallacy.
Equivocation. When a key term has one...
Sorry about that. It's also called an either-or fallacy, which is where you present an extreme option as the only way to view an argument and trying to get people to really buy into it based on that extreme that you presented.
As I'm in the midst of applying for residency right now, wish me luck, Grammarly has again been a lifesaver with my application and helping me write my personal
I'm the only good one.
Do you think you and Mommy did a good job raising me?
Of course we did.
Well, then you obviously taught me right from wrong.
True.
And you should trust me to do the right thing.
Wait.
Or you're a bad father. Take your pick.
Man, you're good.
So, no explanation on that one because it wasn't a Simpsons clip. But just, I mean, that was pretty self-explanatory. Like, think about, like, the kid gets all of these things. Like, you should trust me to do this. And if you don't, then you're a bad parent. Which we know that if just because the parent, if the parent didn't adhere to those things that she listed out, that doesn't make you a bad parent. But if I do that in a way to get my audience to buy into whatever I'm saying, like if I say, if you don't vote for proposition such and such, such and such, you're not a real American. That's a false dilemma. Like, that's not true. Now, granted, some people will buy into that. Some people will be like, well, hey, like, I want to be an American, right? But that's a false dilemma. We don't have that dilemma. Like, same way, like, if you don't vote for the president, it doesn't mean you're a bad citizen, or it doesn't mean you're a real citizen or not a real citizen. You just didn't vote. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about fallacies of sufficiency. We got a hasty generalization, and then we have circular reasoning. I told you it would be a lot of terms, so hopefully you're writing these down or you're pausing the video. So hasty generalizations is when there's not enough evidence to support a particular conclusion, which I'll do the examples afterwards. And then circular reasoning is repeating of the same claim as a way to provide evidence. Now, circular reasoning is easy for you to recognize because often when you're in high stakes argument, especially with like romantic partners, and they're repeating things over and over and over and over and over, trying to get you to understand, that's circular reasoning. That's really easy to remember. But hasty generalizations, that is where I see a lot of points getting taken away in somebody's final essay submission, is because just because you think a certain way, remember, does not mean that everybody else thinks that way. And just because you and your friends think a certain way does also not mean that our entire class is going to think that way. Okay, so let's take a look here.
This place is great. Many cute guys here. Do you smell bacon? Oh, yeah. It's a bacon club chalupa. Guys love bacon. Like, that's really gonna work. Come on.
Hi. Hey. How's it going?
Hi.
What is that you're wearing? It's intoxicating.
Taco Bell's Bacon Club Chalupa is back. Bacon lovers.
Hey, so Taco Bell commercial pointing out that that all guys love bacon. And so if you have bacon in your purse, keep the bacon in your bag or something, you're going to attract guys. Okay. Now, great for the ad, right? But that would be an example of a hasty generalization. There's not enough evidence to support the particular conclusion that just because I have bacon in my back pocket, I'm going to get a date for the night. And I think you understand that. I think that's very easy to remember. Okay, now let's look at circular reasoning. Again, that's repetition.
Oh, no, you don't. Oh, wait. I don't actually care.
All right, Miss Bennis. All finished. Here's your new number.
646? What is this?
That's your new area code.
I thought 646 was just for new numbers.
This is a new number.
No. It's not a new number. It's just a changed number. See, it's not different. It's the same, just changed.
Look, I work for the phone company. I've had a lot of experience with semantics, so don't try to lure me into some maze of circular logic.
You know, I could have killed you and no one would have known.
I could have killed you, and no one would have known.
Okay, so again, and he even mentions it, which is what I really liked about the clip, is he even tells her like, "Don't try to get me with the circular logic or the circular reasoning." Like just repeating that thing over and over and over as a way to provide evidence. Again, just because you say something over and over and in different ways does not mean that you're providing actual sufficient enough evidence. What it means is just that you don't have good evidence, and so you're sort of, I guess, slouching down to just repetition. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Let's talk about firsthand evidence. We're almost out of here. Let's see how much time I got left on this one. Okay, I think I'll be okay. All right. So firsthand evidence is often a piece of evidence that people use whenever they're making sort of personal arguments. And so I wanted to just spend a little bit of time talking about that. So often people lean on personal experience when they don't have enough outside evidence, and that's okay, because there is a lot of knowledge that you hold as a person, and we want to make sure that that's validated. Now, when you're in K through 12, you might hear teachers say, "Don't use I." I is not formal academic writing. Well, in college, typically professors sort of lean outside of that, in the English department at least, because the whole "they say, I say" wouldn't make sense then. Like I say, like I heard, like there's people out there that are saying this, but here's my voice. And also argument sort of, it comes from you. Like how am I arguing something and there's no me in it? So I want you to feel free to use your personal experience as actual evidence. In fact, that shows that you have some connection with the material and you're not just arguing out the side of your neck. Now, I was going to show you this essay as an example of personal experience, but I probably just am going to post it just because I don't want to take up a whole bunch of your time in the lecture itself. So my biggest takeaways from personal experience are to be careful with hasty generalizations. Okay. Just because you and your pals think a certain way doesn't mean I think that same way. So just be cognizant. Also, remember that firsthand evidence includes anecdotes about what other people have maybe told you or what you've observed about another person. So that counts as personal experience. Okay. Don't forget current events. All right. So staying abreast of what's happening locally, nationally, and internationally. Make sure that you have a store of information that can be used in arguments. Now, of course, you're writing your final essay, so go out and get go out and get the evidence. But if you're verbally speaking to somebody, it helps you if I always tell my students, like, know a little bit about a lot. Okay, you don't got to know everything about what's happening in Israel right now. You don't got to know everything about what's happening in Iraq right now. But you need to always have a little bit of knowledge about a lot. Okay. Secondhand experience. This includes factual and historical information. These are verifiable facts from research. I want to take a look at historical information, like how we set this up. So historical information provides context. Keep your descriptions brief, but informative and relevant to your argument. Okay, so let's think about just setting contextual framework. So if you're doing some argument that's based in history, or that's based in gaming, or that's based in the NBA, or that's based in, I don't know, graffiti on the sidewalk, always keep in mind that your audience may not be as much of experts as you are. And so you might need to spend some time setting up context. So for example, por ejemplo, it says the 1920s are remembered as a decade of intolerance. Bigotry was as much of a symbol of the prohibition flappers, the stock market boom, and Calvin Coolidge. It was the only time when the Ku Klux Klan paraded in mass through the nation's capital. In 1921, Congress restricted immigration for the first time in American history, drastically reducing the influx of Catholics and Jews from Southern and Eastern Europe. And the nation's leading universities adopted admission quotas to restrict the number of Jewish students. The Sacco and Vanzetti case, in which two Italian-American anarchists were executed for robbery and murder in a highly questionable prosecution, has always been one of the symbols of the anti-immigrant tenure of the period. Okay, this came from a piece called Hate Speech, The History of an American Controversy. So we can tell from the title what it's going to kind of be about, but also here, this is the piece, the Sacco the Sacco and Vanzetti case, in which two Italian-American anarchists were executed for robbery and murder in a highly questionable prosecution, has always been one of the symbols of the anti-immigrant 10-year period. So the claim has always been one of the symbols of the anti-immigrant 10-year period. The rest of the stuff before that, that is just contextual framework, because I don't know anything about the 1920s and the build of hate speech. No idea. And I'm pretty smart. I'd like to think so. And so if you are giving me some argument about something that you maybe have gleaned that I might not know anything about, it would be very helpful if you give me some contextual framework to work from so that I know what's going on. Okay. Let's talk about another fallacy alert. So this is Latin. If you didn't learn anything today in this lecture, you learned a little bit of Latin. This is my favorite fallacy to talk about. It's post hoc ergo propter hoc, which is Latin for after which, therefore, because of which. We're going to let that sit a little bit. After which, therefore, because of which. So this fallacy reminds people that just because something happened after an event does not mean that that event caused what happened after. Okay, it is incorrect to assume that because something happened earlier, it is the direct result of something else. Example, correlation does not equal causation. So we elected Johnson as president, and look where it got us: hurricanes, floods, stock market crashes. Just because Johnson was our president does not mean that we got hurricanes, floods, and stock market crashes. Like that causation does not equal the correlation. So the causality is very difficult to prove because few things share only one cause. It says shade, this says share. When using historical evidence, you should be especially aware of this fallacy. Check your facts, consider the complexity of the situation, and proceed with caution. Okay, so here's a West Wing example for us.
Hi, Mark Barden at Sandy Hook Promise here. When the gunman shot his way into Sandy Hook
This
Elementary
ad is
School on
happening
December 14th,
organically,
2012,
but even consider the
he loaded his
pathos that's happening
AR-15
right here.
with 30
What's
round
the point in
magazines,
showing these
so he could
children's
continue
photos
firing
right here? I mean, even
without having to.
Okay.
What else?
The Ryder Cup team is declining our invitation to come to the White House
You're kidding.
because of the joke.
You're kidding.
I'm not.
The Ryder Cup team.
It's a group of the best golfers in the country.
I know what the Ryder Cup team is. Thanks, Mrs. Lanningham.
Sir, this may be a good time to talk about your sense of humor.
I've got an intelligence briefing, a security briefing, and a 90-minute budget meeting all scheduled for the same 45 minutes. You sure this is a good time to talk about my sense of humor?
No.
Me neither.
What else?
It's just that it's not the first time it's happened.
I know.
Talking about Texas, sir?
I know.
USA Today asks you why you don't spend more time campaigning in Texas, and you say it's because you don't look good in funny hats.
It was big hats.
What difference does it make?
It makes a difference.
The point is we got whomped in Texas.
We got whomped in Texas twice.
We got whomped in the primary, and we got whomped in November.
I think I was there.
And it was avoidable, sir.
CJ, on your tombstone, it's going to read post hoc ergo propter hoc.
Okay, but none of my visitors are going to be able to understand my tombstone.
27 lawyers in the room. Anybody know post hoc ergo propter hoc? Josh?
Post, after hoc, ergo, therefore. After hoc, therefore something else hoc.
Thank you. Next.
Well, if I got more credit on the 443
Leo.
thing.
After it, therefore, because of it.
After it, therefore, because of it. It means one thing follows the other, therefore it was caused by the other. But it's not always true. In fact, it's hardly ever true. We did not lose Texas because of the hat joke. Do you know when we lost Texas?
When you learn to speak Latin?
Go figure.
Okay. Again, I always love a good clip that I can show in class that actually says the thing. Who would have known that in so many TV shows? Gosh, that scared the crap out of me. Who would have known that in so many TV shows that we're actually talking about fallacies here? Okay. On expert opinion, as you're bringing that into your evidence, remember that everyone is an expert on something. Okay. But a real expert in argumentative writing is someone who has published research on a topic or their job or experience makes them knowledgeable of the subject matter. Okay. Expert must be seen as credible. Remember, same thing in media bias. I need to create another video. Hold up. Got to do a part 3. Okay. Give me just a second. I got to download for part 3. And then that'll wrap up our session.